All right, welcome everyone. Today we're going to be unpacking two of Percy Bysshe Shelley's absolute masterpieces. And hey, if you're studying for an exam on romantic poetry, you've come to the right place. This is going to be your secret weapon. So here's our game plan. First, we'll set the stage. Look at the revolutionary world Shelley was living in. Then, we're going to do a deep dive into two iconic poems, Ode to the West Wind and To a Skylark. After that, we'll pull it all together and talk about the big themes. You know, the stuff you'll really need for your exam.
Okay, so first things first, to really get Shelley, you can't just read the poems. You have to understand the world he was dropped into. And man, what a world it was. Still shaking from the aftershocks of revolution. It was this age of just incredible promise, but at the same time, this crushing, profound disillusionment.
You know, the first wave of romantic poets, guys like William Wordsworth, they were just electrified by the French Revolution. They truly believed they were witnessing the dawn of a new age for all of humanity. It was this incredible moment, just bursting with hope and these amazing democratic ideals. But that bliss didn't last. It soured into absolute horror. All those beautiful utopian ideals of liberty and equality, they got swallowed up by the brutal reality of the Reign of Terror. And this created a huge paradox, a real crisis that the next generation of poets, Shelley's generation, had to figure out how to deal with. And that's exactly where Shelley comes in. See, he doesn't inherit that initial pure hope. He inherits the messy, complex, broken aftermath. So for him, poetry becomes this kind of battleground. It's where he wrestles with this massive tension between the world as it actually was, oppressive and just broken, and the world that he was dreaming of, the world as it could be. So the big question is, how does all this tension actually show up in his work? Well, let's jump right in with our first poem, Ode to the West Wind. And let me tell you, this thing is not some gentle breeze. Oh no, it's a full-on hurricane of political and spiritual force. Okay, so in this poem, you have to understand the wind is not just wind. It's not just weather. It's this powerful, violent, almost terrifying metaphor for the unstoppable force of change. And Shelley gives it this really cool dual identity. He says it's both a destroyer and a preserver. And that brings us right to the core engine of the poem. It's this idea of creative destruction. The wind has to be a destroyer first. It has to come through and violently sweep away all the dead leaves, right? And those leaves, they're symbols for the old, corrupt systems, the tired, stagnant ideas. It's clearing the ground to make room for something new. Then it acts as a preserver, scattering the seeds of the future. And this is where it gets really personal. Shelley isn't just watching this happen from a distance. No way. He's literally begging the wind, take my revolutionary ideas, my dead thoughts, and scatter them all over the world. He wants his words to be like those seeds, to go out and hopefully spark a new birth of freedom and justice. The whole poem really is building towards this one massive idea. Think about it. If the wind brings winter, and for Shelley, winter is a symbol for all the bad stuff, right? Political oppression, human suffering, then it logically has to bring whatever comes next. And that, of course, leads to the poem's huge central prophecy. It's one of the most famous lines in all of English literature, and for a really good reason. It takes this simple, natural cycle of the seasons and turns it into this incredibly powerful political statement. It's a promise, really, that even when things are at their absolute darkest, revolution and renewal, they're not just possible, they're inevitable. Okay, so let's shift gears completely. We're going to go from that earthy, violent storm of the west wind to a totally different kind of natural symbol. We're talking about the unseen, almost heavenly song of the skylark. Right from the get-go, Shelley is telling us, hey, this is not just a bird. He calls it a blithe spirit, which means like a carefree, almost divine being. He calls it an unbodied joy. Think about that, something you can hear but you can't see, representing the state of just pure, perfect happiness that feels like it's coming from another world. So this sets up this central problem of the poem, right? How in the world do you describe that? Shelley, the poet, is desperately trying to bottle this perfect, spontaneous song with his words, but human language, it just keeps failing him. It's not enough. So what does he do? He just starts throwing metaphors at it, one after another. He's like, what is this song like? It's like a hidden poet. It's like a maiden in a tower, a glowworm, a rose. And all of these things are beautiful, for sure, but none of them are quite right. And this flood of comparisons that don't quite work, it's Shelley's way of showing us the limits of our own art when we're faced with the perfection of nature. And this all leads to the poem's knockout punch, the key contrast. The Skylark has this pure, uncomplicated joy that we humans literally cannot understand. Why? Because our art, even our sweetest songs, is always mixed with sadness. It's always about pain, memory, longing for what we don't have. The Skylark doesn't long for anything, it just is pure joy. Okay, so let's pause and take stock. We have this violent, revolutionary wind on one hand and this heavenly, joyful bird on the other. They seem like total opposites, right? So how do these two incredibly different poems come together to show us what Shelley thought the poet's job really was? This table breaks it down really nicely. If you look at West Wind, nature is this powerful, violent force for changing the world, for changing politics right here on Earth. And the poet's role? He wants to be an active part of that. It's trumpet. But then you look at Skylark, and nature is the spiritual, perfect ideal. The poet's job there is to try and channel that pure beauty, to find hope in something beyond our messy, flawed world. But here's the thing. Ultimately, both poems bring us to the exact same conclusion about the poet's mission. It doesn't matter if they're acting as a trumpet of a prophecy and calling for revolution, or if they're trying to capture some divine beauty. In both cases, the poet's ultimate goal is the same: to elevate us, to transform our world. Okay, let's bring it all home. We're going to boil all this down into the absolute key points you need to have locked and loaded for your exam. Think of this section as your exam gold. This is the good stuff. These right here are the core concepts that are driving both poems. You've got that political rebellion and that whole cycle of destruction and rebirth. That's Ode to the West Wind, pure and simple. The power of imagination, that painful gap between the ideal and the real, that's all over to a Skylark. And the big one, the idea of the poet as this revolutionary voice, that's the thread connecting both of them. And one last crucial piece of context for any exam, remember where Shelley fits. You have to place him firmly in the Romantic movement. And what was Romanticism? It was basically a massive rejection of the super rigid, logical, rule-based classicism that came before it. Shelley, with all his intense emotion, his worship of the individual imagination, and his fiery revolutionary spirit, he is the definition of a Romantic poet. So as we get ready to wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final question to chew on. It's a question that really gets to the very heart of everything Shelley was trying to do, and maybe the entire Romantic project itself. This is the challenge that Shelley hands down to us. Can poetry actually change the world? Is the poet that active revolutionary force like the West Wind? Or are they more like the Skylark, this beautiful, inspired voice that sings of a better world but can't quite bring it into being? It's a huge question, and honestly, it's just as relevant and powerful today as it was 200 years ago.